She'll cry, she'll beg. Mark's voice echoed from my phone's speaker, followed by muffled laughter. I stood frozen in my bedroom, my finger hovering over the screen where I'd accidentally answered his call. He hadn't realized I'd picked up. Dude, you gotta film her face when I do it. The look is gonna be priceless. My stomach twisted into a knot as I pressed the phone to my ear, straining to hear more. The call had come just as I was pulling out a dress for our date tonight. Our 6-month anniversary dinner at Willoughby's, the fanciest restaurant in Oak Ridge. I'd been excited all week. Now I felt sick. Don't worry, another voice, Tyler's, replied. I'll get the whole thing. Breakup reaction videos always go viral. I ended the call silently, my hands trembling. Last night was supposed to be about celebration. Instead, I discovered my boyfriend was planning to humiliate me for entertainment. Moving back to Oak Ridge after college wasn't my first choice. I'd dreamed of a publishing job in Chicago, but when Dad's heart attack hit our family, I returned to help Mom with his recovery. Small towns have long memories, and everyone remembered me as shy Emily Parker from high school. The quiet girl who helped organize the library's summer reading program and never missed Sunday service at First Presbyterian. The guest house behind my parents' Victorian home became my refuge. It was small but private, a place to nurse my wounded dreams while working at the local library. 6 months ago, when Mark Caldwell asked me out while returning an overdue copy of The Great Gatsby, I was flattered. The Caldwells owned half the businesses on Main Street. Their law firm handled every important contract in 3 counties. You've caught quite a fish, Mom had whispered after our third date, squeezing my hand across the kitchen table. The Caldwells don't usually mix with families like ours. I should have recognized the warning in her words. At first, dating Mark felt like stepping into a spotlight. Heads turned when we entered the Oak Ridge diner. People smiled a little wider, were a little more helpful when we shopped downtown. Mark was charming in those early days, opening doors, remembering my favorite flowers, yellow daisies, listening intently to my dreams of someday writing children's books. But something changed around month 3. I noticed it first at the Memorial Day picnic. Mark's hand gripped my waist a little too tightly when James Porter, my high school lab partner, came over to say hello. Later that evening, he jokingly scrolled through my text messages while I was in the bathroom. Just making sure you're not keeping secrets, he'd said with that perfect white smile that never quite reached his eyes. Public Mark and private Mark became 2 different people. In town, he was the golden boy, generous with tips, remembering everyone's names, asking about their families. But alone, his comments carried barbs. That dress makes you look interesting. You really think that's a good career plan? My mother wonders why you don't do something about your hair. I ignored the red flags, making excuses. He was under pressure at his father's firm. He was tired. I was being too sensitive. Then came the whispers. Working at the library, you hear things people don't think matter. Mrs. Henderson, returning romance novels, mentioned how that poor Wilson girl had to transfer colleges after dating Mark. Mr. Jenkins, while scanning the newspaper, remarked that Mark collected and discarded girlfriends like baseball cards. I filed these comments away, not wanting to believe them. Last Tuesday, Sarah Jenkins came into the library just before closing. We'd been friendly in high school, not close but comfortable enough. Now she worked as a paralegal at Caldwell & Sons. Emily, she said quietly, glancing around though we were alone, be careful with Mark. I've seen the pattern. What pattern? I asked, straightening already neat rows of returned books. The chase. The pedestal. The public adoration. Then the cruel dismissal. He's filmed the last 2 breakups. She placed her hand on mine. His father cleans up afterward. Settlements with NDAs. I laughed it off, told her she was mistaken. But her warning lingered like perfume after its wearer has left the room. Now 3 days later, holding my silent phone, I knew Sarah had been right. I sat down at my small desk and opened my laptop. With trembling fingers, I typed Mark's name into the search bar, adding breakup after it. Nothing appeared in the results, but that would make sense if his father had videos removed. A memory surfaced. Mark's password, casually entered while I stood nearby at a coffee shop. His birthday and the word legacy. Worth a try. His Instagram account opened, revealing a private folder shared only with 5 users. There they were, videos labeled with girls' initials and dates. JW 11/13. T.S. March 22nd. My chest ached as I watched just enough to confirm the truth. Tears on shocked faces. Mark's voice, calm and detached. You didn't really think this was serious, did you? I closed the laptop, emotion building inside me. Not sadness, rage. Pure clarifying anger. The anniversary dinner was still happening tonight. Mark didn't know I'd heard his plans. Tyler would be there with his camera hidden somewhere waiting to capture my humiliation. I reached for my phone again, this time with steady hands, and dialed the library's reference desk. Jenny? It's Emily. I need access to the newspaper archives. The ones from 5 years ago about the Caldwell family lawsuit that was settled out of court. Yes, after hours is perfect. And, do we still have that copier that does envelope printing? For the first time in months I felt a smile forming, not a pleasant one. Mark Caldwell thought he knew how tonight would end. He had no idea what was coming. Jenny handed me the archive key with a concerned look. The basement gets chilly this time of year. There's a space heater down there if you need it. Thanks. I shouldn't be too long, I lied, knowing the depth of my research might take hours. The library basement smelled of old paper and dust, comforting scents to me usually. Tonight, they accompanied my racing heart as I unlocked the archive room. The fluorescent lights flickered reluctantly to life, revealing rows of metal shelving loaded with bound newspapers and file boxes. I had 2 hours before I needed to get ready for dinner. 2 hours to gather enough evidence to turn Mark's plan against him. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Wear something nice tonight. I have big plans. The audacity made my blood boil. Big plans indeed, just not the kind he thought I knew about. I started with the most recent local papers, working backward through mentions of the Caldwell family. Most were predictably glowing: charity donations, business expansions, awards. But 3 years ago a small article caught my eye. Local lawsuit settled out of court. The piece was suspiciously brief, mentioning only that parties have reached a confidential agreement. I photographed it with my phone and kept digging. In the back corner of the archive room, I found a cardboard box labeled Tribune, unpublished. Inside were draft articles, interview notes, and photographs that never made it to print. Ethical journalists would question why these existed at all. But in a town where the Caldwells held such influence, I wasn't surprised. One folder contained handwritten notes from a reporter's interview with a young woman named Catherine Mills. I recognized the name. She'd worked briefly at the Caldwell firm before moving away suddenly. The notes detailed harassment allegations against Mark's father that never saw daylight. My search continued, each discovery building a clearer picture. The Caldwells weren't just influential. They were systematic in burying anything that threatened their pristine image. I needed more current information about Mark specifically. Setting aside the archives, I pulled out my phone and hesitated before calling Tyler. We weren't friends, but we had geometry together senior year. He owed me for tutoring him through finals. Emily. His voice sounded surprised when he answered. What's up? Can we meet? No. It's important. 30 minutes later I sat across from Tyler at Oak Ridge Coffee, far from the library where walls had ears. You're still filming for Mark, right? I asked without preamble. His eyes widened. How did you? I heard you both on the phone. I know about tonight. Tyler looked down at his untouched coffee. Look, it's just a joke. He's not. Not what? Not serious about humiliating me? Not planning to add me to his collection of breakup videos. His face flushed. You know about those? I do now, I said, watching guilt spread across his features. What I don't know is why you're helping him. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. He's my best friend. Is he? Or does he just keep you around to do his dirty work? That struck a nerve. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, looking around as if Mark might materialize in the cafe. You don't understand. The Caldwells, they can make things difficult. For me too, apparently. I leaned forward. Show me the videos, Tyler. I can't. His dad would. His dad isn't here. I am. And I know you've kept copies. The flash drive he reluctantly slid across the table contained 4 videos, not just the 2 I'd glimpsed on Instagram. Each showed the same pattern. Mark, charming until the moment he wasn't, delivering rehearsed breakup speeches while hidden cameras captured his girlfriend's shocked reactions. He's meeting with his dad's PR guy tomorrow to discuss damage control, If any of tonight's footage leaks, Tyler confessed quietly. They have a whole plan for spinning the story if you react badly. Badly? What does that mean? You know, if you cause a scene, get emotional, try to tell people. I nodded slowly, piecing together the full extent of Mark's manipulation. One more thing, has Mark ever mentioned a family scandal from 5 years ago? Something involving a settlement. Tyler's expression confirmed it before he spoke. The Richardson case. I shouldn't know about it, but Mark gets loose-lipped when he drinks. Some girl accused his uncle of financial misconduct. The family paid her off, but there were documents that could have been problematic. What kind of documents? Bank transfers, emails. Evidence that would have implicated Mark's father too. Mark bragged once that his dad keeps copies as insurance against his brother trying to take control of the firm. I thanked Tyler and left him staring guiltily into his coffee. Outside, I texted Jessica Wilkins, JW, from the video files. We'd had English lit together but hadn't spoken since graduation. Can we talk? About Mark Caldwell. I added, knowing the name alone would likely get a response. While waiting, I called the library's reference desk again. Jenny, could you check if we have employee records from Caldwell and Sons? The public ones from their newsletter. Jessica called back as I hurried toward my car. I'm not supposed to talk about him, she said immediately, voice tight with tension. There's an agreement. I know. I'm about to have dinner with him where he plans to film breaking up with me. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. By place. 20 minutes. Driving to Jessica's apartment on the edge of town, I rehearsed what to say. But when she opened the door, her expression stopped me cold. It wasn't just anger in her eyes. It was recognition, like seeing a reflection of her own past. You found out early, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Good. That gives us time. On her coffee table lay a thick folder. She gestured to it with a grim smile. Everything I couldn't legally tell anyone. But sharing documents with a librarian doing research? That's just helping with educational purposes, right? I picked up the folder, feeling its weight in more ways than one. What's in here? Everything you need to wipe that smirk off Mark Caldwell's face. Jessica's apartment was sparsely furnished but meticulously organized, much like her approach to the documentation spread before us. She moved with precise efficiency, separating papers into categories as she explained each piece. This section is personal, she said, tapping a stack of printed text messages. Mark's communications with me after our breakup. Threatening, manipulative, classic intimidation tactics to keep me quiet. I scanned the messages, noting the same charming to cruel pattern I'd experienced. Did you respond to these? Only once, Jessica pointed to a single reply she'd sent. I've saved everything. After that, his father's lawyer contacted me with settlement papers. The folder contained more than just Jessica's experience. There were statements from Catherine Mills detailing workplace harassment, financial documents showing questionable transfers between Caldwell family accounts, and something particularly damning, evidence that Mark's father had covered up his brother's embezzlement from client trust accounts. Where did you get all this? I asked, holding up bank statements that clearly shouldn't be in her possession. Jessica's expression hardened. Mark's father offered me a job after graduation, before I started dating his son. I worked in records for 3 months, saw things I wasn't supposed to see. After Mark and I broke up, I realized I might need insurance. As I photographed the most crucial documents, Jessica disappeared into her bedroom, returning with a sleek manila envelope. Presentation matters, she said, handing it to me. Quality paper, professional appearance. Makes the contents feel more official. I nodded, understanding the psychology. I need one more element. Something personal to Mark. Jessica hesitated. There's one thing. Mark records all his calls. Paranoid habit he picked up from his father. Their system backs up to a cloud server with embarrassingly weak security. She pulled out her laptop. Give me 15 minutes. While Jessica worked, I organized my materials. The bank statements and legal documents would form the core of my evidence. But I needed something that would hit Mark personally, not just threaten his family's reputation. Got it, Jessica announced, turning her screen toward me. Last week's call between Mark and Tyler, planning your breakup. And bonus, a conversation with his father about you. I plugged in my earbuds and listened. Mark's voice was casual, almost bored as he described how he'd orchestrate my humiliation. Dad wants this handled cleanly. The Parker girl doesn't have connections, but she works at the library. People like her. We need this to look like she's the unstable one if she talks. His father's response chilled me. Just like the Wilson situation. If she makes noise afterward, we'll have the video to show she's exaggerating. People believe what they see. I downloaded the audio files, a strange calm settling over me. This is enough. Jessica watched me thoughtfully. You know they'll come after you, right? The Caldwells don't lose gracefully. I'm counting on it, I said, surprising myself with my steadiness. But they've never faced someone who wasn't afraid of them. Back at my apartment, I had less than an hour to prepare for dinner. I laid everything out on my desk. The financial documents, the harassment statements, the text messages, and the audio files, now loaded onto a small USB drive. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Wear the blue dress tonight. Makes your eyes pop. Another command disguised as a compliment. I glanced at my closet where a red dress hung, one he'd never seen before. Perfect. I arranged the documents carefully inside Jessica's manila envelope, placing the USB drive prominently on top. As a final touch, I printed a single sheet of paper with the words, "We know," in bold letters. My hands didn't shake anymore. The nervous energy that had propelled me through the day had transformed into something cooler, more deliberate. I sealed the envelope and wrote Mark's name on it in my neatest handwriting. The last piece of preparation wasn't documentary but mental. I stood before my mirror, practicing my expression. Not angry, not victimized, but calmly confident. I rehearsed the exact words I would say, the precise moment I would interrupt his performance. My phone rang. Tyler. He knows something's up, he said without greeting. You haven't been answering his texts quickly enough. Good, I replied. Let him worry. Emily, you don't understand. When Mark gets caught off guard, he gets mean. Really mean. Are you sure about this? I looked at the sealed envelope on my desk. Completely sure. Will you still be filming tonight? Tyler paused. Yeah. From the table by the window. He wants clear shots of your face when he does it. Perfect. Make sure you get his face too. The whole thing. Why would you want? Tyler stopped. Oh. You're planning to turn this around on him. Just keep the camera steady, I said, ending the call. I slipped the envelope into my purse and checked my appearance one final time. The red dress was perfect, striking but dignified. I applied a shade of lipstick that matched it exactly. If this was going to be filmed, I wanted to look my best. As I drove to Willoughby's, I mentally reviewed every document in the envelope, every revelation it contained. Each piece was a bullet in the chamber, ready to shatter Mark's perfect image. But more importantly, they formed a shield that would protect me from whatever retaliation the Caldwells might attempt. The restaurant appeared ahead, its windows glowing warmly against the darkening evening. I could see Mark through the front glass, already seated, checking his watch. Tyler was positioned exactly where he'd said, phone angled discreetly toward Mark's table. I touched the envelope in my purse one last time, a talisman of sorts, before stepping out of my car. The night air felt electric against my skin. Mark Caldwell thought he was about to star in his own production. He had no idea he was walking onto my stage instead. The maitre d' greeted me with practiced warmth. Miss Parker, Mr. Caldwell is waiting for you. I nodded, smoothing down my red dress. Thank you. Mark's expression flickered between surprise and displeasure at my outfit choice before settling back into his practiced charm. He stood as I approached, kissing my cheek with the perfect pressure for show. Red? He whispered against my ear. I thought we discussed the blue dress. I felt like a change, I replied, sliding into the chair the server pulled out for me. Willoughby's was Oakridge's finest restaurant. All polished wood, crisp white tablecloths, and discreet lighting. The kind of place where waitstaff materialized when needed and vanished when not. Perfect for an intimate conversation. Perfect for Mark's planned performance. Tyler sat 3 tables away, his phone propped against a water glass, angled toward us. He gave me the slightest nod before looking down at his menu. You've been distant today, Mark said, studying me over his wine glass. Everything okay? Just busy at the library, I replied, unfolding my napkin and placing it in my lap. Research project. On our anniversary? Must be important. His tone suggested nothing could possibly be more important than him. The server appeared with water and recited the evening's specials. Mark ordered for both of us without consulting me, another small control tactic I'd grown used to ignoring. Champagne too, he added. We're celebrating 6 wonderful months. As the server departed, I noticed Mark straightening his posture, adjusting his tie, subtle preparations for his upcoming performance. My pulse quickened, but not from fear. The envelope in my purse felt like it was radiating heat against my side. You know, Mark began, his voice shifting into the smooth, practiced tone I now recognized as his public persona. These past 6 months have made me think about what I really want in life. Here it comes. I took a slow sip of water, watching him over the rim of my glass. I've realized some things about myself, about us. He reached across the table to take my hand, his thumb caressing my knuckles in a gesture that would look tender to observers. Tyler's camera would be capturing this moment, the attentive boyfriend about to deliver heartbreaking news. I allowed my face to remain neutral, curious even as if I had no idea what was coming. Emily, you're a wonderful person, Mark continued, his eyes holding mine with practiced sincerity. But I need to be honest with you. The server returned with champagne, popping the cork with professional efficiency. Mark paused, clearly annoyed at the interruption to his script. I used the moment to reach into my purse, fingers closing around the envelope. A toast, Mark suggested once we were alone again, raising his glass. To honesty. To honesty, I echoed, clinking my glass against his but not drinking. He set his glass down and leaned forward, resuming his performance. As I was saying, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About where this relationship is going. I nodded encouragingly, as if helping him through a difficult confession. You deserve someone who can give you everything you want. And I'm just not sure that's me anymore. His eyes flicked briefly toward Tyler's table, checking that the camera was still rolling. I see, I said quietly. Mark's expression softened into practiced compassion. I know this must be difficult to hear. I expect you're upset. I tilted my head slightly. Why would you expect that? His rhythm faltered for a second before he recovered. Well, breakups are always hard. Is that what this is? I asked, my voice steady. A breakup. Emily, I'm trying to be gentle here. A hint of irritation crept into his tone. This wasn't following his script. But yes, I think we should end things. The moment stretched between us. In the corner of my eye, I could see Tyler shifting his phone for a better angle, capturing what Mark assumed would be my breakdown. That I smiled. The expression clearly unsettled him. You're taking this better than I expected. Did you have expectations? I asked softly. About how I'd react? No, You just thought I'd cry? Make a scene? Beg you to reconsider. My voice remained calm, conversational even. Mark's confident facade cracked slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? I removed the envelope from my purse and placed it on the table between us. I think you do. His eyes darted to the envelope, then back to my face. What is this? Something for you to consider before you finish your speech. Mark's laugh sounded hollow. Is this some kind of joke? I leaned forward, maintaining eye contact. We both know who's joking here, Mark. Or should I say performing? I glanced meaningfully toward Tyler's table. The color drained from Mark's face. I don't know what you think. Open it, I said, pushing the envelope toward him. His hands remained flat on the table. I'm not opening anything. I rose slightly from my seat, leaning across the table. Gently, I touched his shoulder, my lips curving into a smile that held no warmth. Then I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Check what's inside the envelope." Mark recoiled as if burned. You know. Everything, I confirmed, resuming my seat. The videos. The planning. Your father's involvement. The settlements. All of it. His eyes darted around the restaurant, calculating witnesses, exit strategies. You're bluffing. Open it and find out. With trembling fingers, Mark finally reached for the envelope. As he pulled out the contents, his expression transformed, shock giving way to understanding, then to something I'd never seen on his face before: fear. The "we know" page sat on top, followed by the bank statements, the USB drive, the testimonials from Jessica and the others. How did you? His voice trailed off as he continued shuffling through the documents. People talk, Mark. especially to librarians. He hastily stuffed everything back into the envelope, his composure completely shattered. These are private family matters. You had no right. No right. I raised an eyebrow. Like you had no right to film your breakups? To humiliate women for entertainment? To plan my public embarrassment with Tyler over there? I gestured toward his friend who was now staring openly at us, camera still recording. Mark's face, that perfect controlled face that had smiled from Caldwell family portraits around town, crumpled into an expression of pure panic. It was, as I'd anticipated, worth everything I'd gone through. "What do you want?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I stood, smoothing my red dress. "For tonight? Just dinner alone. I've suddenly lost my appetite for company." As I walked past Tyler's table, I paused. "Keep filming," I told him quietly. "I think the ending of this story just changed." The morning after my confrontation with Mark, I woke to my phone vibrating off the nightstand. 17 missed calls, 5 from Mark, 8 from unknown numbers, 3 from Tyler and 1 from Mom. I started with Mom's message. "Honey, there are some strange rumors going around town. Call me when you wake up." Oak Ridge's gossip network operated at light speed. I made coffee before returning any calls, savoring the quiet before the inevitable storm. The envelope, or rather copies of its contents, had gone to 3 secure locations overnight. Insurance, just as Jessica had taught me. Tyler's text arrived as I poured my second cup. "Mark's dad just called mine. They're freaking out. What did you put in that envelope?" I smiled into my coffee. The first ripples were reaching shore. When I finally called Mom back, her voice was tense. "Emily, what happened last night?" "Judith Caldwell cornered me at the pharmacy asking if you were emotionally stable." Her exact words. I took a deep breath and told her everything. Mark's planned humiliation, the evidence I'd gathered, the confrontation at Willoughby's. Her silence on the other end stretched until I worried we'd lost connection. "Mom. I'm here," she said finally. "I'm just processing. You stood up to the Caldwells. No one does that in Oak Ridge." "Someone had to," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Your father's going to need his heart medication when he hears this," she said, but I detected a note of pride beneath her concern. By noon my doorbell rang. I half expected Mark or his father, perhaps with a lawyer in tow. Instead, Sarah Jenkins stood on my porch, clutching her purse with white knuckles. "Can I come in?" she asked, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I don't want to be seen here, but I had to talk to you." Inside, she paced my small living room. "The entire firm is in chaos. Emergency meetings all morning. Mark's father shredded half his files before the partners arrived. They're worried about what I know," I guessed. Sarah nodded. "But it's more than that. They're worried about who else knows. Tyler uploaded the video from last night, just to the family server, not publicly, but it's been downloaded multiple times already. I hadn't expected that development." "Who has it?" "Everyone who matters," Sarah said, a hint of satisfaction breaking through her anxiety. "The other partners. Mark's Aunt Patricia, who's been fighting for more control of the firm for years. And Catherine Mill's lawyer." The dominoes were falling faster than I'd anticipated. "What about Mark? Hasn't shown his face. His father's saying he's taking personal time." Sarah finally sat down, her nervous energy ebbing. "You should know they're discussing how to handle you. There was talk of a defamation suit, but Patricia shut that down immediately. Said any legal action would just validate your evidence." I offered Sarah tea, which she accepted with shaking hands. As we talked, my phone continued to buzz with messages. Jessica wanted to meet. Mrs. Henderson from the library board asked if I'd consider an early lunch. Even James Porter, my old lab partner, texted, "Just heard about Mark. You okay? Need anything?" By week's end, Oak Ridge had divided largely along predictable lines. The Caldwell inner circle closed ranks, issuing vague statements about personal matters and privacy concerns. But for every person who suddenly avoided eye contact with me at the grocery store, 2 others offered subtle support. A knowing nod, a coffee anonymously paid for, a warm handshake that lingered. The library, surprisingly, became my sanctuary. Library director Mrs. Winters called me into her office on Monday morning. I expected a reprimand for accessing archives after hours. Instead she closed the door and said, "My niece dated Mark Caldwell her sophomore year at State. She transferred schools afterward." "Thank you." 2 weeks after the confrontation, Mark himself finally resurfaced, not in person but through his lawyer. A formal letter arrived requesting the return of all misappropriated materials and offering a good faith settlement in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement. I declined through my own newly acquired counsel, Catherine Mill's lawyer, who took my case pro bono. "They're scared," he explained during our third meeting. "Not just of what you have but of what example you're setting. Small towns run on silence." The most unexpected development came from Tyler. He distanced himself from Mark and one rainy afternoon appeared at the library reference desk. "I want to apologize," he said, eyes fixed on the counter between us. "For being part of it. For filming all those times." I studied him, this nervous young man who'd been Mark's shadow for years. "Are you still filming things, Tyler?" He nodded. "But different things now. Real things. I'm documenting stories about the town. People who've been silenced." "That sounds worthwhile," I said, genuinely impressed by his redirection. Would you consider being interviewed? About standing up to them?" He rushed the words out before courage failed him. "You're kind of becoming a symbol around here." The idea was uncomfortable. I'd never sought to be anyone's symbol, but I understood its value. "I'll think about it." As summer turned to fall, the immediate drama faded into something more substantial and lasting. The Caldwell firm underwent a restructuring, with Mark's father stepping back from day-to-day operations. Mark himself left Oak Ridge, reportedly for a position in his uncle's Chicago office. The specifics of whatever family reckoning occurred remained private, but the shift in power was visible to anyone paying attention. Jessica and I became genuine friends, meeting weekly for coffee. Catherine Mills returned to town for her mother's birthday and sought me out to shake my hand. Mrs. Winters offered me additional responsibilities at the library, including community outreach. The most meaningful change, however, was internal. Walking through Oak Ridge no longer felt like navigating someone else's territory. I'd reclaimed not just my dignity but something more fundamental: my right to exist in my hometown on my own terms. 6 months after that night at Willoughby's, I received a small package. Inside was a thumb drive and a note in Tyler's handwriting. "The final cut. Thought you should have it." The video showed exactly what had happened that night. Mark's smug confidence dissolving into panic, my quiet strength growing with each moment. I watched it once, then tucked it away. Unlike Mark, I had no desire to replay another person's humiliation, even his. The victory wasn't in his downfall but in what rose from it. A community slowly learning to question authority, women supporting each other, and my own voice finally unafraid to speak. Last night was wild indeed. But not for the reasons he'd hoped.